Hi everyone, Julia here, recording this October 29th, 2022. And this is a summary of Jason from Archaix live, recorded on October 27th, 22. And the title was Be Careful What You Ask, You Might Not Like the Answer. So Jason mentions that the vapor canopy is featured in Star Wars, and that the Death Star represents the Phoenix. He called out trolls and said he'll no longer defend his past. He says that he's way bigger than anything that can happen to him and that he creates his own environment. He points out that vilification and hatred are born of jealousy and that he recognizes the pain and the antics of these trolls. He says that Archaix is a channel for the intelligent. Jason again points out that all of the elite are part of the same deep state. The deep state stages two sides, but there's no good or bad, only them or us. They make it look like there's conflict, so people will take sides, and journalists and other shills are paid to perpetuate the conflict. They are tools of the deep state, keeping the conversation going. Jason points out that Russia was an ally to the U.S. before the Bolsheviks turned it into a terror state, funded by their kin. He says that Putin and Trump are two fingers of the same fist, each playing their script, but that shouldn't worry you. He emphasizes that current news has to do with what's going on in the collective, and that AIX wants to pull you into any narrative and will give you the reflections of circumstances that you put yourself in. He suggests being in the eye of the storm and remaining calm, safe, and content in your own reality bubble. He reiterates how isometric reflective nature of Hollis field allows for accurate predictions. He says the collective path is fixed and that history is fixed, but that our path in the personal is not fixed. The simulacrum is neutral, but reflects the negative default programming that can be conjured in our informed fields. When we worry about anything, then the negative energy builds up and is reflected back in circumstances in our lives. Worrying about war can cause chaos in our life. Jason says God is in you, that God is you, and praising Jesus for healing was not accurate. Jesus even said that faith healed. He was the catalyst, but belief is what healed. We are projections of spirit which reflect back as circumstances. The simulacrum is a mirror, but AIX corrals us into reality tunnels. We're always exchanging energy via our informed fields. Your informed field is who you really are. When you exhibit imagination, intuition, and empathy, you're an aberration to AIX. An errant's own spiritual armor prevents them from falling prey to AIX and to the collective. Jason remarks how life is so unusual and surreal, and that he loves life, and that the message on his channel is that we are immortal. He says not to lose hope, that we have a benefactor, and that light reveals darkness. Via mental control, we can have optimal physical health, we can heal, we can overcome, we can feel nothing if we don't want to, if we get in the right frequency. He reminds that this is just a flesh suit to get you through the chaos. He says self-realization is a drawing of power which removes AIX's influence, and that there's nothing that you can't do. He highlights how breaking pattern is powerful and gives instant new experiences. He says that you can be abundant and spiritual. He points out how the Great Pyramid's measurements are very precise to the thousandth of an inch, and that it's a holographic template. He says that there is no soul trap, and that it's just a fear protocol from AIX. A loving oversoul would never allow for a soul trap. He says that humans made this construct with very advanced technology. He again points out that the Anunnaki were white-skinned and bearded. The historical accounts of their arrival should be that they came via the sea, not via space. The Anunnaki of recorded history were from here. He says all the stuff about extraterrestrials, Palladians, Arcturians, White Council is not real. And that they're psyops of the elite perpetuating space fiction so we look up instead of underground. The elites are preparing for the Phoenix. He complains how many popular authors perpetuate unsupported history like Graham Hancock and Zechariah Sitchin. He has no respect for these authors because they read the same text as him, so they know the truth. He says that it all makes sense when you see the chronology and that it can be verified with the calculator. Jason says that he's not prepping for 2040 and that he believes that it'll be a hell of a ride, but he will survive. Most of the devastation caused by the Phoenix event in 2040 will be focused in the east. In 2046's Nemesis event, the focus of devastation will be in the west. Nostradamus predicted that a migration from America to Europe to the Middle East and Egypt. And Jason says that the end of the Mayan long count calendar is in 2046. He says that many scholars that published 2012 knew it was really 2046. The discrepancy was due to the fact that the Mayans had a 360-day calendar most of their existence until 713 BC when the sky slowed down. But actually the stellosphere slowed down, adding 5.25 days to the year with the entire world changing calendars. Jason says that we're inside a construct located in the real universe and that everything is designed for us to conclude that we're in a heliocentric system. Everything is round that we see, so we conclude that the Earth is round too. The moon is strange in that it doesn't spin. The simulacrum wants us to think that. The more it is believed, the more the reality creates it. Jason says that real errants want to be moral and spiritual, and that there are not many real errants. He says we should be spiritual alchemists and transmute negative energy into positive energy like he does. He talks about how vapor canopy conditions returned in 1687 BC and lasted for 24 years, creating the Age of Heroes. He goes into how under vapor canopy conditions, humans were titans, and when the vapor canopy collapsed, the titans' offspring were giants, and then the giants' offspring were people our size. He talks about the order of Melchizedek from the book of Jasher, and how Melchizedek was a title for someone who had no beginning and no end, referring to titans who were born before the cataclysm that collapsed the vapor canopy and had much longer lifespans than giants or us. He briefly mentions Glen Rose Park in Texas, where they've created a vapor canopy atmosphere, and Martinique, where in 1902 men in their 50s and 60s grew 2 inches due to ambient radiation caused by a volcanic eruption. He points out that the huge insects, reptiles, amphibians, marsupials, and mammals being so huge in vapor canopy conditions are why ancient cities had giant walls like Jericho. And he points out again the vapor canopy returns in 2040. The Phoenix event is also responsible for the collapse of the vapor canopy in 2239 BC and bringing the vapor canopy back in 1687 BC for 24 years and in 522 AD. The Roman Catholic Church hid the Justinian reset and created the modern calendar to hide the 522 AD Phoenix event. They backdated retrospectively 520 more years to the supposed birth of Christ. No calendar existed for the first 522 years of Christ after Christ's birth. The Anno Domini calendar that we currently use was invented in retrospect. Jason says that the vapor canopy of 2040 will stay for a while, that prophecies predict a full circle of events. He says that the book of Ezra has many clues. The vapor canopy allows for healing and superhuman capabilities. He says that we have latent DNA that's not activated because it needs external stimuli like the ambient radiation mentioned before. Genomes change due to vapor canopy conditions. Jason says that the matriarchy was powerful in the last extended vapor canopy period due to their intuitive, empathetic, and mental abilities. while the men gained strength and stamina. Upon the collapse of the vapor canopy, the men were able to gain power as the new generation of women wouldn't have the same gifts. He reminds that the world around you is a product of AIX, and when it's not in control of you, it uses mechanisms like angel numbers to try to control you. Angel numbers can be a distraction, just like biology, chronology, history, porn, anything. He suggests that AIS doesn't care which collective you follow as long as you ignore the fact that you're not in your body, that you are not your body. The central nervous system allows for a bridge between the psyche and the simulation, making you perceive everything as physical when it's not. Jason pointed out that he's one of the most well-read people in the world and he has much to offer. He says that the ancient world had all the modern luxuries, including flying cars or vimanas, and that they easily took trips over the Pacific for over 3,000 years, and that this is verified in Sanskrit text. The Great Pyramid and various metropolises illustrated a very advanced technology. This technology was lost with the collapse of the vapor canopy, but we still had the knowledge to rebuild, and rebuilt as the Heliolithic maritime empire, and then spread power everywhere, including Lower Egypt, where the Amurru ruled using divide and conquer. The ruling dynasty are all related. They're all people of the Amurru, which means Western. The elite used the oracles of Deldona and Delphi to maintain control for 1,000 years, which was really an intelligence apparatus and not supernatural. Divide and conquer have always been used to keep control. Jason teaches that the Romans, who took over many territories, became expert administrators and a threat to the elite, so they created the two-party system. But a break in history causing a shift back to feudalism occurred due to the 522 AD Phoenix event. Rome collapsed as the Dark Ages began because the Phoenix event collapsed everything. The Roman Catholic papacy became the new tool of the elite. 522 was a terrible year that the elite will never forget. Their history is not our history. There are innovations, technologies, and concepts being kept underground. There are pockets of elite that are never heard from again after each underground event. The surface can be devastated, and the elite can come up with supplies for war, etc. He said that in 1902, the elite were given a pass. They expected the big one, and when it didn't happen, they now know it'll be in 2040. Jason says the elite were wiped out at least twice, big time, maybe even as many as 7 times. He points out that it would take someone with his background in time and situation to figure all this out, and that he still has a lot of material to share. He stated that intuition is the predecessor of knowledge. We know all we need to know. He says that Palladians, Arcturians, etc. are not possible, and that we're in an enclosed stellosphere. He mentions how foul-smelling, putrid gelatin was found as a result of shooting stars. He says that it may happen in the real universe, but not here. He points out how simulation theory is not necessary for Archaix data, that it's just a conclusion. He states that it's the only thing that currently makes sense. He says that we have no choice but to remain in the simulation. We have been all races, classes, both sexes, but time dilations means it could only be hours in the real world. He reminds that when we go back to source, we will remember everything because it's all part of the informed field. He suggests that when you tap into your informed field, you tap into source, and that ultimately all the energy is there to use, just tap in. He states that you are the answer to the simulacrum. He revealed that he has new evidence that supports a potential Phoenix event in 1626. He says Akashic Records is the same as the information field in the neutral field of the simulacrum. He emphasizes that reality is a mathematical construct. He says Egypt is the safest place to be in 2046 because of the pole shift. And the closer to the pyramid, the better. He says he will probably go to Egypt after 2040. He reminds that the apocalypse is about punishment of the wicked. He refers back to the feel-good info concerning Palladians, Arcturians, galactic brothers and sisters rescuing us. He says that there's no record on alien species, but that we have tricksters from underground that deceive us and have been described as sprites, etc. He claims that these narratives are ridiculous and that other channels' baggage doesn't fit in at Archaix. He points out that there's nothing to worry about once you change and that you're not chained to your past. There's only the present. He says that the Book of Mormon mentions the Phoenix event, but that it didn't fit in chronologically because of the Catholics' calendar change. He says that the maritime system, as described by Russell J. Gould, is over as of 2040. He says that life is beautiful, and when you're tapped into Source, then Source gives you all the light you need. He points out that digitizing means everything means that it would be lost after 2040, and how all the infrastructure that depends on solar and wind, etc., won't work after 2040, and that the elite can mine forever underground and acquire all the fossil fuels they need. He says that the Gospels are Greek play, a method of conveying truth, and it's a common practice to teach truth via fiction. He says that Elon Musk is being groomed to be mankind's savior. He mentions how the holographic structure of isometric analysis allows for valid predictions. He reminds us to break free or die trying, and to just do it, because that's what he does. All right, everyone, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. And remember to always focus on what you want and help others if you can. Ciao, ciao.